for teaching staff, for university students who present with depression and anxiety. My name is Karen Lee Edward and my team is Rafay Che, Anne Roan and Melissa Sweeney. I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which we now meet. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and emerging. I also pay my respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of Australia and hope that the path towards reconciliation continues to be shared and embraced. To start, I'd like to give an overview on depression and anxiety. But first, what is mood? A mood is simply the way a person feels, usually over an extended period of time. Mood has a strong influence on behaviour. For example, if a person is feeling apathetic, they are unlikely to exercise. Mood is also difficult to control. If a person feels sad or depressed, for example, it isn't easy to simply put this feeling aside and get on with the business of work or study. Moods are sometimes difficult to distinguish from one another. For example, consider the moods of delight and excitement. You might be able to tell the difference between them in yourself, but would you be able to distinguish them in another person? Because moods are strongly linked to the endocrine and nervous system, they can sometimes be released in surges. This can be seen in major life events like adolescence, when a person's body is changing, or menopause, during those life crises that endocrine surges occur. Moods can sometimes be unpredictable. While it's common to feel happy when events around us are positive and sad when events are upsetting, there may be times when moods arise that are surprising and cause concern. For example, feeling sad for no discernible reason, or feeling bursts of anger, or feeling on edge without knowing why. While it's termed an anxiety disorders are a mental health problem and affect the mind and the body equally. Emotional distress that is constant, surging, or unpredictable is extremely difficult for the mind to tolerate. It's understandable that as human beings, we all want to make sense and find some reason for the anxiety appearing in our lives, where the mind can then begin to work logically and respond behaviourally. There are different theories about what triggers our anxiety. There's the evolutionary argument that we've evolved over thousands of years as humans and we're predisposed for fear from what our ancestors feared. There's a genetic inheritance theory that these are running families. Altered brain chemistry, such as the influences from drugs or other stimulants. There's cognitive theories where anxiety is a result of a chain of events, and there's social theories where the person has undue stress created in their lives and anxiety presents after that cumulative stress. Anxiety and depression can go together. They can be occurring at the same time for a person. Depression has an impact on every single part of a person's life. Physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, socially, and behaviourally. People usually seek help for depression because they begin to realise that it's impacting negatively on their capacity and willingness to work, engage in hobbies, relate to people, and do the things they would normally enjoy. Perhaps because depression is so common in society and so easily recognised, too many people wrongly believe that it's possible to simply snap out of it or to stop indulging in the negative feelings. These kinds of simplistic views are unhelpful to the person who is experiencing the mood disorder. The negative judgments made by others in society about a person who is depressed may be taken to heart and deepen the person's sense of unworthiness, guilt, or other symptoms of depression. Not surprisingly, the most common mental disorders globally are depressive and anxiety disorders, affecting approximately 4% of the world's population. Depressive disorders are characterised by sadness, loss of interest or pleasure, poor sleep, tiredness, and poor concentration. Anxiety disorders are characterised by feelings of fear and may be generalised or non-specific, or part of a panic related to social situations, or it could be related to some trauma the person's experienced in their lives. In Australia, depressive and anxiety disorders affect approximately 6 and 7% respectively of the population. In the UK and in the US, these figures are very similar. Commonly, depressive and anxiety disorders affect females more than males across the lifespan. It can also lead to self-harm or suicide. There is an increase in the number of university students presenting with mental disorders such as depression and anxiety, whether this is diagnosed or not. This increase in number may be attributed to the increased diagnosis rates that we see, increased public health awareness, and pressures of higher education, and also the students' desire to disclose. Support for student equity in universities in Australia has been focused on the mobilisation of support resources such as additional time for assignments, counselling services and specialist equipment. However, even though these supportive resources are in place, staff knowledge and capacity for assisting students is often dependent on that academic's own knowledge or exposure to mental disorders. Based on learning and educational theories, we came up with an acronym to help teachers to use these strategies for increased inclusive learning in teaching with these students. The approach is called PLAN, P-L-A-N. First, to provide flexible learning to accommodate for personal differences. This is important in terms of being inclusive with these types of students. To link the person to counselling, student equity services, but also importantly to reinforce current health service support that they may be engaged with, like their GP. Approach and assessment. We recommend to use the Universal Design Learning approach to engage and motivate students. In this approach, assessment is information that will enable you as the teacher to support learning. Assessment can be used as formative assessment, which is marking early learning, and summative assessment, which is what was learned. We suggest to build a community of practice that facilitates peer support, where students can support other students in the learning process. Eliminating barriers to learning and assessment are important, so having frequent formative assessments is key to overcoming some of those barriers. Offering authentic learning assessment and opportunities, being clear with expectations, and aligning learning goals to learning outcomes. And finally, navigate. To navigate the use of multiple platforms to present information to students, and this accommodates for different learning styles. Some students are visual learners, others are auditory learners, while some students learn by practicing the skill. To highlight some of these strategies in a practical way, well, let's talk about Mia's story. So Mia is a first-year engineering student who is enrolled in your unit, where you are the unit convener. Mia sends you an email to say her mother is unwell and that she's feeling stressed and overwhelmed. She tells you in the email that she has been to her GP and is being treated for an anxiety disorder, which was diagnosed when she was 17 years old. Using the PLAN model, we would provide Mia with the flexible learning approaches This will help her to overcome some of the emotional barriers she is facing. Mia has an ongoing anxiety disorder, so the likelihood of developing depression is quite high for her. Flexible learning includes classroom-based learning, employer-based learning, and online platforms. Important to flexible learning is the pace of learning, whether it's full-time or part-time study, and these should be options for people like Mia. To link Mia to campus-based student support services such as student counselling, student equity services, and learning and academic skills support. It is important to reinforce the benefits of using her existing health services, and if she has disengaged with those, to encourage her to re-engage with them or to use the other on-campus services that are provided by the university. Approach and assessment. Using the Universal Design Learning approach, we can help engage and motivate students like Mia. In this approach, assessment uses formative and summative approaches, and these can support Mia's learning. Using group work can facilitate peer support, and using authentic learning and clarifying expectations and aligning goals can help Mia reduce her anxiety related to study while she focuses on increasing support structures within her own day-to-day life. And finally, to navigate. To navigate the use of multiple platforms for you to present information for knowledge building. Using online platforms, forums, quizzes and lectures, even the use of avatar for experiential learning in a digital space can help students who have anxiety disorder still engage in the learning process. These are some really useful references when looking at information in and around anxiety, depression, and even suicide. Our job as academics is not to be therapists, but to be informed so that we can help students like Mia to be engaged and included in the learning process. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this presentation.